Just because you're pretending like your grief isn't there doesn't mean it's gone. Grief is such an essential part of being human. Every single one of my colleagues, all of them, saw me sobbing on the floor. Nothing is going the way that I planned at all. And yet, look at all of the possibilities of what I can do now that I have nothing to prove to anybody anymore at all. We push down our grief. We pretend like it's not there. You are not a failure for making some space for your feelings in the middle of a workday. You will be able to come back to whatever you were working on in a much more efficient way than if you're sitting there for those 5 minutes saying, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, versus just going outside and maybe shedding a tear or two. Those of us who have been through hell, I think we really appreciate the joyous moments around us and we can really relish in them. Without my darkness and without all of the awful things that I've been through, I don't think I could be so joyful.
How have you noticed your grief changing over time?
We as a society have been taught a very neat model of what grief is supposed to look like. All of us will experience loss at some point in our lives. That is totally normal. The part that becomes abnormal is...
Welcome to The Edge of Possible, the podcast dedicated to helping you achieve extraordinary things. I'm your host, Cameron Atlas, and together, let's unlock your edge. Loss is inevitable, and it's an essential part of being human. What can often end up happening, though, is we experience our grief as a sign of weakness. We try to put on a brave face and jump straight back into work as if nothing ever happened. But the truth is, pushing our grief down doesn't make it disappear. That's a reality that today's guest knows intimately. Rebecca Feinglos is a certified grief support specialist, the founder and CEO of Grieve Leave, and the host of the Griefed Up podcast. After losing her mother to brain cancer as a teenager, Rebecca became a master at hiding her pain. It was almost a badge of honor to seem perfectly fine. But when her father suddenly passed away in early 2020, and she navigated a divorce shortly after, the illusion that you can compartmentalize your grief was completely shattered. Rebecca took a dedicated year of grieve leave, and today she reaches millions, offering honesty, humor, and real tools to help people navigate their darkest moments. Whether you're grieving the death of a loved one, the end of a marriage, or any major life transition, you're going to discover how to hold space for your feelings without losing your momentum, how to truly support the people around you, and how experiencing your lowest lows can ultimately lead to your deepest joy. Please enjoy my conversation with Rebecca Feinglos. Rebecca, for those who are experiencing or have recently experienced some kind of loss, what do you find the biggest mistake is that they have or they make when navigating their grief?
I would say pretending like it's not happening, just trying to move past it and trying to just get back to normal as exactly how you were, the day before yesterday, the day before your person died, or the day before you got the news that changed your life. I think so many of us are taught that grief is not something we should talk about, is not something, it's weak. It's weak if we acknowledge that we're feeling pain. And my advice to anybody who's right at the beginning of it is it's okay to acknowledge that you're hurting. It's okay to not be yourself and just give yourself permission to feel that for a minute. The mistake to me is faking like you're totally fine. And that becomes so emotionally exhausting and draining. So give yourself a little permission to feel it.
Do you find that if you don't do that, if somebody doesn't do that, are you pushing it down? What happens?
I mean, just because you're pretending like your grief isn't there doesn't mean it's gone, right? Like our grief is such an essential part of being human. All of us will experience loss at some point in our lives. That is totally normal. The part that's becomes abnormal is our societal expectation that you just keep moving forward, you just keep moving on, and we push down our grief. We pretend like it's not there, particularly in a work setting. We keep wanting to show up as we were. And so to your point, we find ourselves compelled societally to push our feelings away, to pretend like it's not happening, and then it'll erupt at moments that are really inconvenient. So I'm thinking about the fact that you can't really push your grief down. You can act like it's not there for a while, but when you don't give your feelings space, they don't just magically disappear. They can grow, and you can start to feel really overwhelmed by them if you don't give them just a little bit of space.
Yeah, there's this song that I wrote a number of years ago that had the lyrics in it. I've been places most people won't dare go, as is up high, so is below. Right? And there's this notion that there is a full spectrum of emotions for us to experience. They're there for a reason.
Yeah.
They're there for us to experience them at different times and different places. And I think if we don't give ourselves permission to experience those, then we can't just expect that we're going to get to experience all the positive ones.
Well, it's so inconvenient when we feel like we're not at our best, right? And especially for those of us who are high achieving doers, I certainly would put myself in that category. I did not ever want to acknowledge that I was down, and that was just not the message that I received, was being someone who is successful first in school and then at work and then, professionally, right? The biggest compliment I could get was someone saying like, oh, I never would have guessed you had a dead parent. I never would have guessed your mom died when you were a kid. I loved that.
It's almost a badge of honor.
Yeah, that was like, oh, I'm so fun and positive. You would never know.
Yeah.
And I think what you're hitting on is the duality of feeling that I think those of us who have been through hell, I think we really appreciate the joyous moments around us and we can really relish in them. I certainly feel that way. And so I think without my darkness and without all of the awful things that I've been through, I don't think I could be so joyful, right?
Yeah.
So I love that song lyric. Please play it.
Yeah. I guess a question I've got then is, you mentioned you had this period of time where you were going to show up.
Yeah.
Joyful. You wouldn't have even known that something had happened. Where did that come from?
I think America.
Okay.
I think, listen,
like a societal component to it?
It's just the expectation, right? Like my mom was diagnosed with brain cancer when I was 5 and she was 45. And glioblastoma is a death sentence. It is the deadliest form of brain cancer, even 20 plus years ago. Then, unfortunately, nothing's really changed, though treatments give you a little more time. It is still a death sentence now. And the message that I got as a 5-year-old through when she died when I was 13 and in the years after, the message I got was, oh, well, she's doing fine. Rebecca's doing fine. She's doing great, because I wasn't sad, because I didn't seem sad at school, because I had a lot of friends, because I looked cute, because, I did all the things kids do. I was social. And so that was the feedback loop that I was getting. She's doing great. No one needed to worry about me. I could not get off the success track that I was on. I think that is baked in to who we are as a country. And it is this societal expectation. I think we're in a little bit of a different place now today than we were when I was a kid, because I think talking about mental health is much more socially acceptable than it used to be. But even so, I think we have a little more permission to not be on our A game after a loss. But it's still like the badge of honor. It is still a badge of honor to be like, you seem like you're doing so great. We love that. We love to hear that when we're going through a loss.
Yeah. Was there a coping mechanism in there for you of feeling joyful, or was it simply that feedback loop that was coming through? Was there anybody that asked, how are you doing? Like, did they really check in with you? Like, what was that experience like for you?
What a great question. I feel like in those 8 years of mom dying slowly over time, she lived for 8 years because she was in experimental treatments. Both of my late parents were, they worked at Duke University Hospital, and they were very integrated and had access to really, really great care. So mom lived a long time. Her death sentence took a long time, and it was not a fun household. It was a lot of scary stuff that we saw behind the scenes, we being me and my brother, and my dad doing his damnedest to, can I swear on your podcast? Of
course you can.
Okay, great.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Okay. My dad was doing his damnedest as a single father to make our home as peaceful as it could be. But when you have an adult who is slowly dying and slowly losing their brain function, there's nothing pretty about that.
Yeah.
And it is like the opposite. It's just frightening. It was really, really scary as a kid. So for me, school was my safe space. That was like my escape. And I got very, very good at negotiating with my dad and then my friends' parents about, could I go to so-and-so's house this weekend? And I just kept my social calendar very, very busy. And I tried to not be at home as much as I could. I see that now in retrospect, right? I think it was totally about coping and about survival and compartmentalizing this really scary part about my life. And I don't know if you overdo this. I mean, you write songs, so you probably had a diary as a kid. I have gone back to read my diaries, and it'll literally be like, I was the tallest girl in my class. It'll be like, oh, I'll just say his name. I love Jay. He's so amazing. He's the same height as me. Next page. Mom had a seizure again. She was in the hospital. It's really scary. I feel like I'm living a double life. Next page. No more Jay. Not interested anymore. How about Kurt? And like, that was my entire middle school life, right? It was just this complete compartmentalization of how bad things were at home and no one ever being able to guess that. And so I also don't want to like shit on my teachers because I had a wonderful school. It's not that people weren't checking in. I think it's that I was doing fine.
They didn't know.
That what was there to check in on, And I remember at the very, very beginning, Dad putting both me and my brother in some kind of like recommended therapy that they would send kids to with terminally ill parents. I remember doing that, but I feel like I went like once. They were like, she's good. I don't think those conversations are the same anymore. I think it's different now because I've heard this shared before. Pay attention to your kid that you think is doing fine versus the kid that is acting out a lot or seems like they're struggling. How is that kid actually doing who seems like they're great? Where are they putting all of the feelings that we know are there? And for me, I just pushed that down.
Yeah.
Did not even give it space.
Did it come back up at some stage?
Well, that's what happens when your dad dies too, out of the blue. My dad dropped dead on day one of COVID lockdown.
Wow.
I was 30. And so that's math. That's 17 years after my mom died. Oh my God, I literally can't. I can do math.
Yeah, you got that.
I have a graduate degree. I can do. I just had a moment of panic. And I was like, oh my God. Losing another parent when you are not expecting it, that made me realize all of the grief that I had not really processed for my mom, because suddenly you are 30 years old with two dead parents. And I'm realizing, live that I don't feel like I have any idea how to tackle these feelings. And that was my instinct of like, what do I do? There's nothing to do. I had to feel it.
Yeah. How did you go about feeling that then? How did you go about processing at the time when not only your father's passed away, but then you're dealing with the grief of your mother as well that you hadn't dealt with at the time?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, let's set the stage for a second. Let's go back to these lovely times of early COVID. This was March 14th, 2020. We are almost exactly to the day. We are almost on the 6th anniversary, which is crazy to me. So I think back to, wherever we all were when we were first hearing about COVID. Yeah. And I had no idea that my dad was also going to be dead just a few days later. At that point, I think we were hearing that I'm a big basketball girly. You should know this about me. We were hearing that like the postseason was canceled for college basketball. And some of my final texts with my dad were, holy shit, can you believe this? Like COVID, wow, that's crazy. And that day on March 14th, I was called in. I had spent my entire career in government and public policy and education. And I had worked on early childhood policy for the entire state of North Carolina. But on that day of COVID lockdown, everyone on our team, this is senior levels of government for our state, everyone's job changed that day. And so I got a phone call that morning, Saturday morning, asking me to come to a secure location in downtown Raleigh to figure out how we were shutting down schools across North Carolina, because I was the senior most person with a background in education. How we were going to figure out how the hell we were going to do that. And I called my dad on the way in as I was driving from Durham to Raleigh. It's like a 25-minute drive without traffic. Chatted with my dad, told me he loved me, as we always talked on my drive to or from work. My dad was my closest friend, and we talked about everything. And, you know, he told me he loved me, so proud of you. And 2 hours later, I was leading a meeting in that secure basement location in Raleigh. And I got the news through a phone call after a bunch of phone calls I had ignored because I was so busy running this meeting, that my dad had died. Totally out of the blue, out of nowhere. And so those feelings of loss when you're not expecting it, there was nothing I could do to not just be fully vulnerable, like sobbing on the floor at work. So that news just broke me open in front of all of my colleagues, because all of us were called in. And then I got the worst news of my entire life. And so to me, there was no hiding anything anymore. Like, it broke this illusion for me that you can compartmentalize grief. I learned immediately that I could not. Every single one of my colleagues, all of them, saw me sobbing on the floor because people thought I was injured, like they were coming to help. They didn't know what had happened. Every single one of my colleagues knew what happened. So that changed everything for me. It changed my entire approach to grief and grieving as like, no, this is just a part of who I am. I can't be work me versus personal me anymore. It's just me. All of that, plus like you're in the middle of COVID lockdown. I took a month off of work and I was home just trying my best to navigate these heavy feelings that I really wanted to avoid, because my mindset was always be the doer. I wanted to go help. But my team told me to stay home for a little while. And then long story short, I mean, I went back to work. I got divorced somewhere in there, like a year later, which came with its own grief and is very integrated into this entire experience of when your feelings surface, what does it make you realize about other relationships in your life? What does it make you realize about your approach to what you want to do every day? It changed my perspective about work. It changed my perspective about my marriage. And I ended up leaving my job. So it was like such a journey, starting from this moment on that Saturday morning where let's go a week before, because COVID was already kind of messing up with our minds. A week before that, I would have told you I was on this wonderful path in my life and everything was very linear and I was working my butt off and everything was going great. And then it just totally 180'd and I had to completely reorient myself around grief and loss.
Yeah. They seem like two very different experiences.
Mom's death and dad's death.
Very, very different. Yeah. And what you were able to do by the sounds of this is that with your mum, you were able to compartmentalize because there was a period of time, for one. You learned to do that very well. Two, it enabled you to cope, for a third piece. And I would say from what you've shared, it enabled you to play a role in your family.
Oh my God, totally.
Yeah. Because
I was the good kid.
Yeah, you were the role in the family. You don't rock the boat.
Totally.
There's all this going on, all of this happening. I'm going to make sure that I'm not part of the problem.
And I'm going to make sure my dad's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt very protective of him. I really wanted to be so helpful. This is like the parentified daughter kind of thing that can happen sometimes. I wanted my dad to be okay.
Yeah.
That gets me choked up. I love thinking about my dad. And also like this time of year, it is like, what a privilege to be able to talk about him with you and talk about that experience with you. And it is also like, we are right at the time of year that it is heaviest and feels just so seasonal. Like March 14th every year is a hard day. It's a really hard day. And what are we at? March 12th.
Yeah, when we're recording this, it's, that's crazy in itself. That second experience, I can only imagine how difficult that must have been. And again, to have like that immediacy of it, there's all of a sudden no hiding.
Yeah.
And from the experience you just shared there, it's people got to witness you and got to witness your vulnerability at a time when you couldn't hide it.
Yeah.
And you got to witness that it's okay.
I love how you said that too, that I got to and they got to.
Yeah.
Because to me, that language, again, demonstrates like it's a privilege to be that intimate with another person. And my colleagues and I were intimately in this moment together. And that is both tragic and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. It's what does make being human a privilege.
Yeah.
You know, it is these moments of being human.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful celebratory moments, and it is the rock bottom moments as well, one that you experienced. And so you mentioned about it being seasonal. How have you noticed your grief changing over time?
Ooh, I love this because I think we as a society have been taught a very neat model of what grief is supposed to look like. We kind of hinted at this before, that I was doing a good job at grieving if I seemed fine. And I think even in more detail than that, we've internalized the 5 stages of grief as something that we move through linearly until we have reached acceptance of our grief. And the mentality is, well, then I get back to my life. But the truth is that there is no getting back to who I was before my dad died. There is no getting back to the person that I was. That completely changed me. And I think what I learned, I don't know how to say this in like a more polite way, but when my dad was dead and I had gotten divorced and my mom had died when I was a kid, and every single one of my colleagues had seen me at the worst moment of my life, I just developed a mentality of like, well, fuck it. I'm still here, right? Like I am still living every single day of my life. I have survived all of that. Like, and what? Like I'm still the person that I am. I'm still going to be Rebecca. And all of these terrible things have happened that I thought I'd never survive. And yet I did. I'm still here. You think that your grief is like totally insurmountable. And in some ways it is. I will never get over that my dad's died. I will never move on from that ever. That will always be true. I'm better at carrying it though. Like I am better now at acknowledging that this is just a part of who I am. And like, if you love me, if you want to hang out with me, if you want to work with me, if you want any kind of a relationship with me, now I only tolerate spending time with people who can carry it all with me, who can hold the grief with me and hold the joy. And that's a different mindset than I had previously. Like getting just totally broken wide open and surviving it really changes you.
I think there's something heartbreaking and beautiful about experiencing a worst case scenario. It's one thing to think about the worst case scenario and can you make peace with that, but actually experiencing it and then just realizing that, well, this is terrible and this is heartbreaking and I feel broken.
And I'm here.
Yeah. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Did you notice that fear dissipated in your life?
I mean, I just
as to what you believed that was possible?
I don't give any fucks anymore.
Yeah.
I just really don't.
Yeah.
And that is so freeing. It means that I feel more free than ever to do the work that I want to do, to say the things that I want to say. And I think honestly, so here's a timeline for everyone keeping track of this like insane grief buffet that I've lived. Okay, so mom died in 2002. I was 13. Dad died and a lot of other things happened. I got married. Okay, great. Built a career I loved. Dad died 2020. Divorce initiated 2021 in June. I had another long-term relationship post my divorce that I think in my head, I was still very much like, oh, I could totally get married again and have kids by the time I'm 35. Like this, I can get back on track. Like even through all of that, there was still that little voice in the back of my head being like, no, you can still meet the outcomes that you always thought you were going to meet. You can still meet your life goals. Like you can get through this. You can get over this. It'll be fine. You'll win. You'll get to the fairy tale ending. And then that relationship ended, that second one after my marriage. And it was at that point that I was like, okay, I am going to be 35 years old. I will have no children. I will not be married. Both of my parents are dead. I have quit the job that I thought that I was going to, I thought I was going to be president someday. I still may be, but I was just a very, very linearly approached to public service. And I left all of it, started my own company. Great. I just had a moment of reckoning when I was turning 35. And I was like, fuck it. Nothing is going the way that I planned at all. And yet, like, look at all of the possibilities of what I have. Look at all of the possibilities of what I can do now that I have nothing to prove to anybody anymore at all. The only thing that has driven me from the beginning of my life is service, is helping people. That is what I care about professionally, period. That is, I want to help people in some capacity every single day of my life. I get to do that now through the work that I do, through my company, through Grieve Leave, through philanthropic work that I do. And I am not at all on the track that I thought I would be on. And that's okay. That came with a lot, and I'm too competitive that I can't even call it a failure. It's not that. I didn't fail. It's just nothing really played out the way that I thought it was going to in my life. And that's okay.
There was something I heard, I can't remember who it was, but I think it was in a video somewhere, someone talking about this spiritual teacher from many, many years ago. And in this workshop or event, whatever it was, him sharing, do you want to know my secret? And everyone leans in, right? It's like, oh, what's he going to say? And I thought it was brilliant. He said, I don't mind what happens.
Yeah.
There's such wisdom in that.
Oh my God. Because
there is a letting go that occurs. There is a not needing it to be a certain way that allows you, Bruce Lee once said, be water, my friend. Water is formless, it's shapeless, it becomes the cup, right? And that ability to flow with life, that there is going to be mayhem that will occur. There will be times that come out of nowhere and are completely unexpected. And our ability to flow with that, our ability to not mind what happens, to care still, because I think that grief and the feelings that we have enable us to understand just how much we loved someone or something, right? And that ability is beautiful in that way. It enables you to honor that person or that thing that is no longer maybe here or is in some other way, shape, or form. One question I have is, you mentioned about the people that are in your life now and the people that are showing up in the way that you're, is aligned to how you're wanting to experience life. What are the attributes of somebody like that?
Well, they have to give not zero fucks, but they can't give too many fucks, right? Listen, I am so lucky to have so many. Oh, that gets me super emotional. Talking about my friends. My friends are my family. And they are the people that have held me up when I felt like absolutely worthless, particularly post my divorce.
Yeah.
When I felt incredibly alone. I was living alone for the first time in my entire life. Both of my parents were gone. And I was so lucky to have friends that I could count on to help hold me up. But the people that I choose to spend time with these days are the people who are really comfortable with where they are in the world. They're comfortable with who they are. They love the work that they do. They love who they are as people. And the people I don't spend as much time with anymore are the people who Maybe you have a very linear approach to life. Honestly, like I used to. I don't know that my boyfriend and I joke about this, and I'm fine saying this on the podcast. We do not think we would have liked each other in my in my own life. Because I was such a tight ass.
Yeah.
And I really worked my butt off. And there's nothing wrong with that, to try to be in control of every single aspect of my life. I had a vision. I was going to work incredibly hard to reach that vision. That made me very successful professionally, personally. I've always had a great group of friends. But the depths of those relationships now are totally different, because I am not trying to, I don't think I'm better than anybody else. My friends don't think they're better than anybody else. My closest friends, I think we're just not judgmental. And maybe some of that comes with age too, that the more life we live, the more we realize that like things are just going to happen. And we choose to surround ourselves with people that we want to surround ourselves with. But I really did have to make a different group of friends, especially post the end of my marriage. I spent a lot more time with people who, frankly, were single at the same time that I was. And we were all trying to navigate like what it's like to be in your 30s and a professional woman, a successful woman, and not be married. That was a new mindset shift for me of someone maybe I would have judged as being not as successful as I was, married, perfect job. And then suddenly I'm in that category. I needed friends who weren't going to judge me. And I have them. They're wonderful.
Let go of the criteria that was needed, right?
Yeah. But it makes me sound like such an asshole. I swear. I've always been a very nice person. So hear me out. I'm very nice. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform exceptionally all the time. And the irony now is I believe that the work I do is excellent, and I still pursue excellence every single day. And the people who work for me, I mean, you can ask them if I'm still a hard ass. I'm still a hard ass. But I think I lead with humanity now in a way that I didn't. And I know that we can get to really wonderful outcomes and not be assholes to each other. We can remember that we're all human and that like there's no one way to get to a particular outcome.
I think that comes with the experience that you've had and time as well. You shared that before, that when we go through and experience different pieces, I've shared this multiple times to folks, that the massive power in contrasting experiences, because it's in the contrast that we get to understand who we really are and what we actually want to experience and what we don't want to experience. And I would say that from what you've just shared, I'm thinking about this now, that you had these two contrasting experiences from a grief standpoint, and you got to witness the one that actually lines up with how you're wanting to live.
Wait, that's interesting. Wait, say more about what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Like my mom and my dad.
Yeah. So if you think about back to your father,
that
you process the grief in a certain way.
Yeah.
You process the grief in a different way.
Yeah.
They were, I would say, from what you've shared, very different, almost polar opposite
For sure.
in that experience. You got to experience this and the beauty, the tragedy, but the beauty that came from that. And it enabled you to choose a different way forward.
Totally.
And that enabled you, I wouldn't be at all surprised if then that had you question the different parts of your life. You said that there was an ending of your marriage from a divorce standpoint that came afterwards. So there was, and that tends to be what happens, is that we go through these different experiences. And again, it enables us to understand a little more about ourselves, understand a little more about the world, understand a little more about the people around us, and understand a little bit more about what we're willing to put up with and what we're not willing to put up with, the standards that we're willing to adhere to and those that are no longer a fit, the criteria that we still want to achieve, or actually that doesn't even matter that much anymore.
You know what you're making me think about too is like, as a kid, I didn't know that I was safe, right? Like you're a kid,
How so? How did you not feel you were safe?
I think this is true for any kid that experiences the loss of a parent. So many of us find ourselves like scrambling for any kind of sense of security and attention from people. And I think I didn't know. Things were so unpredictable. Like I didn't know if someone was going to pick me up from school or not, because if someone didn't pick me up from school, that meant that mom was in the hospital again. And that like things like that happened all the time. As great of a job as my father did to keep things as stable as he could, there was so much unpredictability. I just didn't know. As an adult, I had to learn that I was safe no matter what happened. If, with dad gone and choosing to end my marriage, I had to learn that I am safe as myself right now. I am enough. I am capable. I can live alone. I have the financial means to feel safe. I think there's also an incredible amount of privilege that I have to acknowledge, that I had the financial sustainability to be able to walk away from a job, to be able to walk away from a marriage, right? Like not everybody can do that. So I had financial safety too. But it's the emotional side that with that sense of safety, I could grieve in a totally different way. Like I learned that I didn't have to scramble for attention from a partner to feel safe. I walked away from my marriage. And then I still opted back into old habits, entering a new relationship pretty quickly. But it's taken me some time to remember, like I am A-okay as I am right now.
Yeah. How long did that take for you to realize from a safe standpoint? And I'm sure there's like the repeating of it and go, do you really know? Do you really know the lesson? Again and again. I was doing the like mirror thing for a while. God, this is like so depressing. But I remember, so I went on a year of grieve leave, I called it. I quit my job in December 2021. And I spent a year on what I called my year of grieve leave, which was time sort of off, but not really. I was learning about grief and loss. So I was traveling, I was writing about my feelings and what I was learning about grief. I volunteered at a grief summer camp. I drove across the country by myself, but with my dogs. And like all these things that I just never would have done. And at the very beginning of that, I have video of it. It's so sad. I had a set of sayings, kind of maybe mantras, but just like beliefs about myself that I wanted to be true by the end of the year. And one of those, I literally just said into a mirror or my phone or whatever, I am safe. I am enough. I'm happy. I feel valuable. I feel loved. And I could not say those things without crying at the beginning of 2022. Because you didn't feel it?
Because I did not feel them, because they were literally not true.
Yeah.
And by the end of that year, most of them were true. And now I think about those things like, of course I'm safe. Today, not even a question.
Yeah.
I think it took, my dad died 2020. I feel like I felt like I was enough maybe in like 2023. I think I had to go through that second breakup. I think everything had to not fall into place by the time I was 35. I was like, oh, but I'm okay. I had to realize that over and over and over again. And that one final time, I was like, no, I'm good. I am good. I love my life.
So is it the repetition of experiences or noticing that you're safe? Like, because that's a decent amount of time frame, and it usually does take a solid amount of time to shift. What we're talking about here is shifting identity. I am is an identity belief. It's the strongest form of belief that we have. You can believe things about other things and other people and in the world, but the moment that it's like an I am, if there is a deep-rooted piece of I'm not enough, then you should look at the piece of paper and cry because it doesn't feel true. So with that shift that occurred, what were some of the things that you did and experienced that enabled that identity to start to shift?
Yeah. Can I tell you a really simple one?
Please.
I started going to restaurants by myself.
Nice.
Truly. Like literally sitting by myself at a bar.
That was deliberate?
On purpose.
On purpose to grow?
To recognize that I'm not a failure because I'm not on a date right now.
Yep.
I'm not a failure. If anything, I seem cooler. I had to learn. Like, if I see a woman alone at a bar who is dressed immaculately, and reading a book, I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh, she must be so cool. But I did not have that same mentality about myself. And that was advice that I got from my therapist. Love you forever. She's the best. She was like, just go practice being alone. That was the encouragement she gave me. Go practice being alone. And I remember doing that during my year of Grieve Leave and continuing to build that skill of what does it feel like to be by myself? She encouraged me to go for walks without my dogs and without headphones in. And not look at my phone.
You got no distractions, nothing to get in your way, right?
By myself, just walking. And you learn, it was the same, that repetition, learning over time at a bar, in a restaurant, on a walk, going to an event by myself. You know, I get invited to things. I know, I'm sure you do too. I would be so self-conscious about going without a partner. And I started to go to things by myself. And, you know, I learned over and over and over again that I'm fine. There's all of my fears that people were judging me for being by myself or for feeling, I'm coming back to that word unsafe, for feeling unsafe, that being alone was somehow bad or scary. I just had to confront that. I chose to confront that over and over again and build up this realization that like, oh no, I'm fine. And now, honestly, I often prefer to just chill by myself. I'm such an extrovert. I love human interaction. I am as close as I think I'll ever get to like liking introverted things now. Like I can tolerate it more than ever. But I love sitting at a bar by myself. I end up talking to all kinds of people.
Yeah.
And I am no longer concerned that someone's judging me.
Okay. What was the self-talk that you had? When go back to that first time that you went and sat at a bar or went and had dinner by yourself or did something on your own that previously you would have judged yourself for, seen yourself as less than. What was the self-talk that came before, during, and after? Yeah,
I'm thinking about this one particular moment in London at a fancy restaurant I took myself on a date at. And I remember sitting, first of all, I psyched myself up for that self-date. I remember calling to make the reservation and saying it was a reservation for one. Like I wanted that feeling. And I booked it really early though. I was like, let me do like a early bird special. Let me do like a 5 p.m. So then I'm not like, I don't know. I wanted to ease into it.
Ease into it, right? Not have too many people around. Maybe a couple of people, right?
But I wanted that. And I wanted the response. Like what I said to myself, like whatever the hostess responds on the other end is fine, right? Whatever she said, if she says just one, that's fine. It's okay. Of course, she didn't say anything snarky. She's like, great, see you then. And so that's what I was thinking about beforehand, was kind of setting myself up for whatever people say is what people are going to say. I remember I remember picking a book. I don't remember what book I picked, but I picked a book that I felt good about and it was interesting to me at the time. I probably was trying to pick something that wasn't too sad. And I remember going and sitting at my table for one. And I remember thinking like, just sit. Don't look at your phone. Just sit. Be present. Be here. Enjoy the food. Slow down. Relish in the moment. Be present. Don't try to check out from this moment. Don't try to escape it in your mind. Be present right now. And it was fine. It was fine. I remember feeling pretty awkward at that one particular dinner, but now I'm like, these days I'm like, whatever. And then after, like walking away, thinking about how people were looking at, like, I just imagined, right? I'm like, oh, everyone's watching me walk out alone. No, I remember saying to myself, no one's judging you. No one is judging you for being by yourself. People are probably wondering, who is that person?
Who's that strong, confident lady who's dressed immaculately well, right?
We're reading such an interesting book.
Really interesting book.
Yapping, eating. Right. But I had to say that to myself over and over and over. No one is judging you, until I actually ended up believing it.
So good. There's such great wisdom in there. There's something that I have called reference points, right? Now, there's a story with this.
I can't wait.
When I was a kid, we had this book and this book was called Aesop's Fables, I think is the name of it. There's these short stories in there, right? And in one of them was the grasshopper and the ants. Okay, the grasshopper and the ants. And in this story, grasshopper, beautiful day out, loving life, playing around, having a blast. The ants, this is, springtime, summertime, the ants are storing away food for the wintertime.
Yeah.
And the grasshopper comes across, goes, you got to be in the present moment. You work so hard. And the ants go, you should be storing away food for the wintertime. This goes on for a bit until winter comes around. Ants got plenty of food. Grasshopper goes hungry. Right? And the way that I see reference points is that which is building in from a self-talk standpoint, reinforcing who it is that you're becoming. It enables you to be both the grasshopper and the ants at the same time.
I was about to say, I feel like I identify with both.
Yeah, it enables you to be both at the same time because what you're doing is you're storing away food for the wintertime, and I'll give a structure for this in a moment. You're storing away food for the wintertime, which is when you feel bad about yourself, you've got so many reference points to know that you're enough versus that they're judging, that they're this, that they're that. No, I build up a great storage of food, if you will, in this case, the ants. The grasshopper is that you get to acknowledge the growth that you're going through in the moment, right? In the moment is the grasshopper enjoying the day and gets to enjoy, oh my gosh, there's a book that I just got to read. Oh my gosh, the food was so amazing. Oh my gosh, this. And the structure that I built out over time, I didn't have this way back when I first started thinking about this, is there's past, present, and future. Right, you disassociate from who you were, you associate to who you are, and you align to who you're becoming next. And so the language that you're utilizing, and it is because we're talking to ourselves constantly. Whether you do it out loud or whether you do it in your head, you're constantly talking to yourself, right? And so there's so many different thoughts that happen. I am of the belief that I want to not necessarily fully be in control of everything, but I want to be consciously deciding my narrative. Because that's going to enable to know and understand, like, hey, this is the kind of experience that I want to have, and I'm lining up to where I'm going next. And so the example from a distancing self, to disassociate from past is to create so much space, and I can hear it in your voice, is because there is so much space from who you were before.
Oh my God, totally.
That there isn't, even if you have a really bad day, I'd say even a really bad month, maybe even a really bad year, you're not going to get back to the place that you were because you built up so many reference points that even if it's a bad time, you're going to only go back to a certain level, right? Before you then grow through. And so an example, let's say, I used to, from a health and well-being standpoint, I would binge eat. I'd restrict. And then when the gates were open, it was game on, right? Like open the floodgates, right? And for a period of time before, like a day or 2 days or 3 days, and then I would close back up, and then it was restricting. Much more flexible now and loving life from that standpoint. But when it came to the binge eating, an example, man, do you remember when you used to eat all of that crappy food and you restricted yourself and then you then gave in a temptation? Look at what you just ate. Look how amazing the food is. Look how well you treated yourself just then. Look at the love and respect that you just gave to yourself. Imagine what that's going to look like in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months time, right? So it's past, present, and future, right? Look at how if you're talking to yourself there, look at how, remember when you used to really judge yourself and how it was, you thought that going out on your own was a crazy thing and it meant that you were less than or that you weren't good enough. Like, look at how good it feels.
I think about that all the time now.
I'm out. And so there's a reason why it feels so identified with it, because we build in the recognition of the progress that we're making until a point where it becomes part of our identity. But it takes repetition over and over and over and over again. Constantly, we're storing new food away for the wintertime and we're getting rid of the old food at the same time. And that's a balancing act, because if you've got it here and it's the bad food because of all the judgment and negative self-talk, it takes time to build that, which, for you, there was a few years that it took. It takes time.
You know what you're making me think about from a grief standpoint? So I think everything you're saying, I totally agree when it comes to like building my own self-confidence, no doubt about it. I don't think I'm going to get back to a point where I'm like, oh, I'm totally scared of being by myself and I feel like a failure when I'm by myself. Like, I don't think I'm going to get quite there. But you know what you have me thinking about is grief as something that I keep, like, I want to think that I keep building myself up over time. But damn, Cameron, this time of year, around my dad's death anniversary, some moments I sink really deep and don't want to get out of bed in the morning, which is not exactly like it felt when my dad died 6 years ago. But I think if I get too much in my head about that, I might beat myself up a little bit and be like, well, shouldn't I be able to handle this in a different way by now? Like, shouldn't I be over this by now? And I think so many people do that to themselves, that they look at a reference point of like, you know, I shouldn't be this bad.
Yeah.
And I think grief is just a different beast in that sense, that it's like, I give myself permission now to have bad days in my grief, bad moments, bad seconds.
Yeah.
And particularly in the month of March, this is my, I call it my grief high season. Kind of depends on how you look at it, right? My emotional low season, my grief high season. But we're in it right now. And that doesn't mean I can't perform. It doesn't mean I am not sometimes at my absolute best, but I give myself permission to like sink back into grief. I know that, you know, there might be a song that comes on that really reminds me of my dad.
Yeah.
And I am not a failure for crying. I'm not a failure for really feeling low at times. And I think grief ebbs and flows in such really often frustrating ways that if we just let it and stop telling ourselves we should be better by now, I think we all actually will then ironically feel better because, you know, I imagine I am never going to have another moment where my grief for my dad takes my breath away and brings me to my knees like the day it did when he died. That is a shock that I hope can never be repeated. I can't think of a way that could be repeated when it comes to my grief for him. But there are still moments, even now, out of the blue, where something reminds me of him and it takes my breath away a little bit.
Yeah. How do you go about honoring that in that moment? Because, and I think about this as well with, I went to Egypt and Jordan with my aunt a number of years ago, and earlier in the year, my uncle had passed away. Incredible man. They had a 40-year marriage.
What was his name?
Bill.
Bill.
Yeah, Uncle Bill.
Uncle Bill.
Amazing man. And I have a lot to thank when it comes to who I am as a man as a result of him being in my life. And yeah, we were out for dinner the first night when we were near the pyramids, and a song came on. And the song came on, and it was one of those songs that was at the funeral. Like that moment is one of those moments. Like they're waves almost that go through, and just because we've learned how to process something in a certain experience, a certain moment, doesn't mean that it's going to you're going to be able to do that every single time.
Totally.
And so how do you honor yourself in these moments when the grief arises?
Give it some space.
Yeah.
Give it some space however you can. And I think the most inconvenient moments for those waves to hit you are when you're at work. Because you're like, oh my God, I need to finish this spreadsheet, or I'm giving a presentation. Well, it doesn't happen as much for me anyway when I'm like in the moment of a presentation, but maybe you're like writing an email or you have a deadline. My thoughts there are, give it a minute of space. Take a break for a minute. Go listen to a song, right? Like if you hear that song that reminds you of your person, stop what you're doing and go listen to it. Yeah. Finish the song. Or if you are in the middle of a project at work and you're thinking about your person and you're like, no, I can't cry right now. I don't have time. I don't have time for this. In those moments, I'm like, go outside for 5 minutes and just this is when you go for a walk without your headphones. Just go. Take it. Take the 5 minutes, because if you give your grief a little bit of space, number one, you're not a failure, right? You are not a failure for making some space for your feelings in the middle of a workday. Number two, if you do make some space, you will be able to come back to whatever you were working on in a much more efficient way than if you're sitting there for those 5 minutes saying, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, versus just going outside and maybe shedding a tear or two and being like, okay, I gave it some space, and you can come back and focus again. I think we don't give ourselves enough permission to just hold our grief alongside whatever it is that we're doing in our daily lives. It's there. It's just there.
Yeah.
And let's not pretend like it's not. And let's not view making space for that as weakness or we're not being productive enough.
So how should we be thinking about grief then in the workplace?
It's
because
there.
Yeah, it's there. How should we be going about talking about it? Like, how do you go about being like your version of your friends are, for example, when there's another dimension of, for example, deadlines, things have to be done. How do we go about that? Because there's some studies I saw on your site. There's some studies that show that, there's a lot of people that quit within a year from a grief standpoint.
Like,
so
the data is about half, about half of people. And our data isn't great because we don't have any federal policies on bereavement leave. So we don't have a great way of tracking, like you've experienced a loss, you go back to work, how long do you stay at that job? So our data is fine.
Right.
I'd say at least anecdotally, we think that around half of people quit their jobs within a year of a loss.
Wow.
I made it to a year and a half, but I'm pretty darn close to that statistic too. To me, the difference in a workplace that retains its employees that are going through really heavy grief versus those workplaces that do not are the workplaces that normalize that their employees are human beings too. They are workplaces where a boss can make space for someone's grief by incorporating into a weekly check-in. Let's say you've just come back to work from bereavement leave. You normalize that in your weekly check-ins, you are going to be asked by your boss some version of, how are you doing and how's your workload this week? And how can we navigate this together? That's not a therapy session with your boss. What I am not suggesting is that our workplaces become, our boss should not be our therapist, but our boss should acknowledge that we have feelings and that intersects with how we perform at work. Great workplaces can hold both. To me, that's huge. It's also just workplaces where colleagues can talk to each other in a way that's real and they don't avoid someone who has just come back from a loss. That sense of isolation, if you are just coming back to work after, let's say, 2 weeks after the death of, let's say, your uncle, it can be so darn isolating and so common to see many of your colleagues not mention your uncle to you at all. Not mention that you were out at all because it's not polite.
Not polite and maybe not comfortable for them.
Of course it's not comfortable.
And so
they say nothing.
So they say nothing.
And then how do you feel? Awful.
Right.
That you're like, oh, my person's gone and no one's talking to me at work. Or they are, but they're talking about really surface level things. No one's addressing this giant elephant in the room. I was just gone. You all probably know that I experienced a death. Let's just say something about it. That sense of isolation does not have to be true. That is part of what drives people to quit. We can train for that. We can teach people how to just say, hey, I heard what happened to your uncle. I'm so sorry. That, a colleague saying that to you can be the difference maker of you quitting your job because you feel so alone versus you staying because you feel like you're a part of a team that actually cares about who you are.
What else can be done then in those moments? Because it can be uncomfortable to hold space for somebody who's feeling heavy things.
Yeah.
So there's one thing that you just mentioned there of what you could share in when somebody comes back, for example.
Yeah.
Being that grief goes in waves, there's going to be different times. How do we go about holding the space and not needing it to be different, for example? Or how should we be thinking about that?
Wait, have you heard there's like so many think pieces right now about if you want a village, you have to be a villager. Have you heard this?
No.
That I think in our world these days, we have a lot of hesitation around feeling uncomfortable and that we try to avoid discomfort as much as we can. Sitting in a space that is too silent, for example, or having to face someone who is saying something emotional and that makes us emotional. Like that feeling of discomfort is something we try to avoid. And these think pieces are basically like, well, we used to have villages. We used to come together for each other. We used to support each other in ways as humans that we just don't do in the same ways now. And the mindset is, well, to have a village, you have to be a villager. You have to show up for people when it's uncomfortable. You have to get out of your house and go visit someone, go show up with flowers when they are experiencing the death of a loved one. Go sit with them in their pain. I think the same exact framing can be true of a workplace. You want to feel at home at work, or you want to feel a part of a team at work, then you got to show up as a teammate. You want your workplace to feel like a village too, then you have to show up as a villager. That means sitting with someone in their discomfort. If I ask you, how are you doing? I have to be able to sit with whatever your answer might be. If I know you have just come back to work after a loss and I take the time and say, Cameron, how are you? I've been thinking about you. I know your uncle just died. How's it going? Whatever you say next, you could be super offended by that question. You could break down crying. You could laugh it off, whatever it is. I have to be okay with it. It's that same kind of idea of detachment we were talking about before. It's like, whatever happens. It's okay. We have to act that way at work too, because we are human beings at work. And discomfort goes hand in hand with grief. Like we can't separate it out. So I think until you've been in that situation though, coming back to work after a really significant loss, I don't think you know how hard it is till you're surrounded by people who are avoiding their own discomfort and they don't talk to you. It's a devastating feeling. We just don't have to do that. We can just sit in the discomfort. And that sounds so much easier said than done. It requires a lot of bravery on all of our parts.
So let's say we're in that moment.
Yeah.
How do you sit? How do you sit with someone? Is it silence?
Could be.
Is it saying something? Is it asking them what they need? Is it is it asking them like, how are you really doing when they say, oh, I'm doing okay the first time around that you ask the question? Like, what are some of those pieces though within that space? Because it's in that space that somebody either feels heard, understood, taken care of, like you care, versus you're just doing this because we just did a training on it. And,
and I know my sentence starter.
Okay, tick. I said this.
I said my condolences.
But I did this and I did this. So it's like, we didn't even come close to what you needed to be.
Sure.
So
it's hard to train for authenticity.
Yeah.
So I have two thoughts. Let's walk through an in-person example and let's walk through a virtual work environment example, because I think it can be even easier to conceptualize an in-person, but we'll get to virtual in a second.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining it's kind of what we just walked through, that you and I might be sitting in the same lunchroom, or we might have desks next to each other, and you have just come back to work. Maybe we are working on a project together. To me, being a colleague to you that can sit in that discomfort, that can support you through your grief, that looks like me opening up that conversation. First, by acknowledging the loss. I have to name the fact that I know you have gone through a loss, instead of saying like, hey, it's great to see you. How are you? Even that is avoiding the discomfort. It's like dipping their toe into it a little bit. No, let's name the thing. Hey, I know you have gone through the loss of your uncle. Let's say I know it's your uncle. I'm so glad to see you back. How are you? Oh my God, that just opened up an entire line of conversation. Yeah. But naming the loss to me is so key. I think this could also look like me it depends on your workplace, right? But like me putting a hand on your shoulder, or me saying, I'm here, let's grab lunch. Offering to connect is the win. So that is a perfect in-person example. Virtual feels a little harder, because everything I just described, like how do you put that into a Slack message? You know what I mean? But I think we have to do it. I think that looks like you and me maybe being on a Zoom meeting together, or literally me sending you a private Slack message or an email that says, hey, dear Cameron, hey Cameron, whatever it is, I'm so sorry about the loss of your uncle. You've been missed at work. I'm so glad you're back. Can we schedule some time to just chat and catch up? I'd love to just be here for you. Or it could say something like, I want to be as supportive as I can in your transition back, and I'm ready to take on anything. That's a win. Putting it in an email is a vulnerable thing to do. Putting that in a Slack message is and then what do? Do you heart the message after? Like, how do you respond? But to me, that is what it looks like to show up for someone who's grieving at work.
They're great examples, and that I want to be as supportive as I can for you. One of the things that I heard a while ago is, and I've used it at different times when it just purely when somebody's going through something, doesn't necessarily be grief, but it could be, is asking the question like, how can I best show up for you?
I love that.
You know, and I'll usually do it because I could be in coach mode and I go, do you want me in coach mode or do you want me in supportive husband mode, for example? Or,
Wait, but I even think your example there of like how I can show up for you, I want to level up the way you said that, because I think you can be like, how do you want me to show up for you? Do you want a listening ear?
Yep.
Do you want to go grab lunch? Like, give them a couple options.
Yes.
Because to me, like, there's so much decision fatigue that comes with grief. One of the worst things you can say to someone who is grieving is, let me know if you need anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, come on. I have to, like, I'm already exhausted.
Well,
I don't know what I need.
Yeah, you're throwing over when they're already dealing with everything that they're dealing with, and then you're throwing over going, how about you go and make another decision right now? Right?
And it's me avoiding my discomfort.
Yeah.
It's me being like, let me know if you need anything, but let me not try to anticipate. Let me not try to anticipate what it might be.
Yeah.
It's that anticipation that requires the vulnerability. It's like, hey, do you need someone to come do laundry at your place? I would be happy to come help. Or do you need someone to pick up your kid? Like, offer things. Yeah.
What about the grief that's maybe not death related then? Because obviously there's so many different versions of grief. I will share, there's such a small example, but this is more than 10 years ago, living in Melbourne at the time. And it was with my previous girlfriend before I met my beautiful wife, Brittany, over here. And I don't say that just because she's there, it's because it's true.
You really mean it. I would hope so.
Yes. But this was about 13 years ago. We moved from Melbourne back to Adelaide because we were both from South Australia. She was from up in the hills, mine from about 9 hours drive from Adelaide, but like the closest city, because it was kind of the next stage of our lives of being closer to family. But that was the only reason that we were going. And I distinctly remember feeling grief for Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
And in the moment, I remember exactly where I was in this bedroom, and I was standing next to the bed, and I remember like leaning down a bit and thinking about it. And I remember thinking to myself, this is silly. Don't what are you doing? Like, this is just in that moment, I stopped myself and I said, it's okay to feel this. Allow yourself to feel it. Melbourne's a kick-ass city. It's
so cool.
It's such a cool place. And that the only reason that you were leaving is because of the relationship, which, a few months later it ended anyway.
Lo and behold.
But, it was honoring the grief, moving through that enabled me to move on with life and move into the next phase of that. And so when it comes to non-death related grief, so how you pronounce
that's how I say it.
Yeah, is how should we be thinking about that? And that could be from a workplace, but a personal standpoint. Let's go through that a bit.
I got so many thoughts here. Okay, first of all, Melbourne is a kick-ass place. We were talking before we started recording. I have been there. Oh my God, I would grieve for Melbourne. I'm not going to say it wrong.
Oh, you almost said it wrong there.
Melbourne.
For those tuning in, we had a conversation before. She said Melbourne correctly. And I said the two things I ask when that occurs is what was it? Who do you know or where have you been?
I have been to Melbourne
every time, right?
I have been. It is a kick-ass place. I would grieve too if I had lived there and was moving. Totally hear you. First of all, let's just name the fact that we can grieve all kinds of losses. We do not just grieve for a death.
Yeah.
But that is what we have been taught, I think, most explicitly about when it comes to grief. Like if you ask the average person what they know about grief and loss, I bet they would answer, well, grief is about death. And maybe they'd say something about the 5 stages of grief. Like those are the things that we have been totally indoctrinated about, which is not, it's not representative of the gamut of what we grieve, which is literally any kind of loss, any kind of major life change at all. That might be moving from one place that you've spent time in to another place. That means maybe saying goodbye to a community, saying goodbye to a daily routine that you've gone to your same coffee shop every day for years. You can totally grieve not going to your same coffee shop. And I think let me give a couple more examples before I say that. We grieve a diagnosis of a loved one long before, maybe it's not even terminal, right? We grieve someone not being able to live the way that they used to. Maybe they can't physically move the ways that they used to move, or they're not cognitively the same as they used to be, but they're alive. We can totally grieve that. We grieve the losses of pets. We grieve all kinds of things. We grieve the end of marriages. We grieve the ends of relationships. We can grieve like a sense of collective grief that maybe a group of people that we identify with is not being treated well. And maybe there's a sense of political unrest. We can grieve that. All of that is worth your grief. It's all worth your emotions. And yet, we are taught to compare our grief. Am I really allowed to feel this sad over the death of my dog, over the death of my relationship? Like, this is not like my person's still alive. Am I allowed to feel this sad? Am I allowed to feel this sense of pain about leaving my hometown or leaving this place that I lived in? That's silly. I should not feel that way. That is called disenfranchised grief. That is this sense of putting down our grief as it's totally not worth the level of feelings that we have.
And almost like I don't deserve to feel that feeling.
Or putting it on someone else. Like, you're grieving the end of your marriage. You chose to end your marriage. What are you even talking about? Or like divorce is like a 4-letter word. Like, we don't even talk about it. Like, you should feel shame. Grief. What are you even talking about? So we disenfranchise other people's grief and we disenfranchise our own. And we just don't have to.
There are multiple other emotions that can be experienced at the same time. You mentioned like a marriage ending, for example, that there can be, I needed to leave that and I'm so glad that I left that. And I'm grieving not having somebody around, or for what, these different parts of the relationship that there are, it's multifaceted, it's multi-emotional in that way. And same as every single experience that we go through, and giving ourselves permission to feel and experience the full gamut of what makes us human.
Totally. I think again, in our like stereotypes of what grief is, we think, well, grieving looks like sadness and grieving looks like, crying into a pillow or whatever it is. But that's not all that grief is. Grief is all of the collection of feelings that come with loss. It can be even moments of relief. Mm-hmm. When my mom died after being sick for 8 years, we've talked about how scary of a household it was often. There was a huge sense of relief in my family when my mom died. That doesn't mean we're bad people. Doesn't mean we were grieving wrong. Of course, there's devastating sadness, but there was relief alongside of it. That's part of grief too. Or my phone's over there, but a really simple example of joy and grief just being like the same part of that collection of feelings can include joy. My phone background is a picture of my dad. Oh. And it's us at a basketball game. It's the back of his head, really. It's my view from the basketball game that I just felt like taking a picture of in that moment. And it turned out to be one of the last games we ever went to together. I look at my phone too much. It's weird. I don't have it on me that I'm like, but every single time that I look at that picture, I get a little bit of joy. And that's grief too, right? I put that as my phone background for a reason. I want to remember my dad. I want to grieve for him. And it makes me happy to do that. That's not what we're taught grief is supposed to look like. I don't think I've cried in our conversation today, which is, it's not like rare, but I bet there are people who are watching this being like, she hasn't even shed a tear. That's okay too, right? Like, we don't always have to cry in our grief and loss. It's totally fine if you do. Man, I will probably cry tomorrow and like or later today. I mean, who knows?
Well, I'd say that someone that's listening to this, I bet you there's been tears that have been shed because they're going through their own experience, right?
Yeah.
And so that experience, everybody is experiencing it differently. And again, the waves are occurring at different times.
Yeah.
There are different experiences to go through.
Totally.
So what are do you have I don't know if there is a step-by-step way, but are there some things that for those listening who are going through something, or at some stage they're going to go through something when it comes to grief?
Yeah.
Is there a framework or something that they can be thinking through that you've either come across or that you utilize for yourself and with folks that you work with now?
Yep, I have two.
Yeah.
So let me just say out loud, the 5 stages of grief is a model that we have all been taught that has frankly been misapplied to reflect something it was never intended to be a model for.
How so?
So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is the genius, brilliant originator of the 5 stages of grief in the 70s. It was designed as a framework to approach people who were dying of cancer. So she studied a group of people who were themselves dying. And this was her summary, her model of how they were wrestling with their own mortality. So it was really the 5 stages of dying, the 5 stages of someone going through their own mortality. Okay. We just latched on to that as a society of saying like, well, that sounds neat and tidy. I love the idea of going through anger and denial and eventually getting to acceptance. And then I get to move on with my life, right? We love that. That sounds so productive and linear and tied in a bow. It's just not at all how grief works, at all. What I think are 2 more helpful models to think through are one you referred to earlier, whether you knew this was like an official model of grief or whatever. I don't know who like blesses it being an official model of grief, but the wave model. So the best way I have heard this framed is imagine you are sitting with your back facing the ocean, but you're sitting in the sand. And over time, waves hit you and you kind of learn how to keep yourself steady as the waves hit you, right? But at first, a wave might knock you over.
Yeah.
That is a helpful way of thinking about grief that you don't always know at all when it's coming. You might learn the sounds, like well, oh, I bet there's a big wave coming now. Like me right now in the month of March, I know that I'm going to get hit with some waves. The waves don't stop. There is no end point to the ocean. You know, there's no end point to that tide that goes in and out. That's such a great metaphor. But you learn how to keep yourself as stable as possible over time. You learn how to face it. So I love the wave model of grief.
Right.
I think is really helpful. And then another one is the pendulum model. So if you can imagine how pendulum obviously swings back and forth, we might feel like we really need to sit in our grief, sit in our feelings, cry, make a ton of space for it, be in it, sit in it, whatever it is. There are other times when we need that pendulum to swing in the other direction and we need some rest and respite from our grief. We need to go have some fun, go do something else. That we are not always needing to be in the thick of our feelings, deeply reflective about our grief all the time. The pendulum model suggests that we can kind of opt into rest and recharge. And that doesn't mean we're doing a bad job in our grief and grieving, that it is the swing of that pendulum that is still a part of the process too. I like both of those models. I like the wave model. I like the pendulum model.
I love both as well. And I think the one where you're sharing with the pendulum model, if we're thinking about, okay, I'm going to sit in my grief, damn it, I'm going to get through this grief. We're trying to control the grief.
Yeah.
We're trying to control the emotions that we feel. And that's not processing it.
Yeah.
That's not fully processing. That's you trying to control the situation.
Or maybe trying to like intellectualize it too.
Right.
Like trying to explain it. But like, dude, you just got to feel it.
Just feel it. Just allow yourself to feel it. And then, like I said, finding those times where you can experience joy still. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. Yeah. Love this. Such a good conversation.
Oh my God, what a joy.
We have a rapid fire segment
Oh my
called
God, I'm
Your
so excited.
Edge.
Let's do it.
3 pieces: values, beliefs, and habits. Number 1 value and why. What is it for you?
Authenticity. I really believe in showing up as myself, exactly as I am. And now I'm deciding if I should have done that for beliefs. Hold on. Wait, this one was, what was the order again? Values,
beliefs.
Dude, there's merging between my values and beliefs. So we'll get to it. But I've chosen authenticity and I'm going to stick with it.
You're going to stick with it.
I think that's so
for
important.
It.
Like just
You better come up with a really good belief that is different.
Oh my God. Okay. No, I have it. I think they're both kind of related.
Okay.
But no, being authentic to me is the biggest gift we can all give this world, is just to be true to who you are. And I think at the crux of every way I try to show up, I'm just going to be me. And I hope that I know that that's enough, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I love that. That's a nice little reframe there. I love that. What's a belief that's really shaped who you become? That's not about authenticity, or can be about authenticity. So this could be about yourself, about others, about the world. What's a belief that has really shaped who you've become?
Yeah, that we should serve other people as much as we can. That like the more we focus on helping other people, I think the better the world becomes. That service mindset, I get that from my dad. Hands down. He was a physician. Every single day was about making the world just a tiny bit better. Helping one person. That drives me every single day, is service.
That's so good. And you got to experience it as well. First of all, being able to experience that on a regular basis with your dad is just beautiful in itself. And he sounds like an incredible man. And you also experienced that level of service when he passed away and your staff were around. You got to experience that element of service, which is amazing in itself.
It was a wild time. I can't believe it's been 6 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. What about a habit? What's a habit that has really shaped, what's a habit that you can't live without, whether it be a daily habit right out to an annual tradition? What you got?
Go with me here.
All right, let's go.
So it is attending basketball games, which I've hinted at as being very important to me. We are in the middle of March Madness right now as we are in this conversation. Going to Duke basketball games. I'm born and raised in Durham, North Carolina. Going to Duke basketball games with my dad was my happy place growing up. There was no cancer there. There was no, everything was very predictable in a wonderful way. We would always win, obviously. And I always got to go do the cheers, and sitting at Duke basketball games was a joy. And I was privileged enough to go with my dad and my mom before I was born. I mean, they had tickets far before I came along. Yeah. And I have continued to go to Duke basketball games after my dad died. Oh my God, is this going to be the part when I cry in the interview? Because, but listen, basketball is deeply important to me. It is the place that I still go that I feel like he's right there with me. Like I can go to those games and I can see him sitting with me. I can feel him there. It was just our fun thing that we did all the time. And I love going. I feel like I've just hung out with him every single time that I go. And as long as I can like physically you will see me in a wheelchair someday or like just plop me in the seats. I will go as long as I can, because that habit is like, it is as close as I can get to spending time with my dad today. I love it.
So special.
Thanks.
How long did it take for you to go to a game after he passed away?
So here's what was kind of built in was COVID. COVID ended the basketball season. So we didn't have an audience again until 2021.
Okay.
And then I bought in, got my own tickets, and I went back. I cried at that first game. I remember really, really struggling because it was a moment of just, oh, this is real. Like I am going back to this place and he is not here. And eventually, after continuing to go, it started to feel like he was there, right? Like he is. It's just he's with me, and in that place in particular, I love it.
It's been a great conversation. Where can people go to find out more about you?
Oh, it's been such a pleasure, Cameron. Thank you. You can find me all over the internet, for better or for worse. At Grieve Leave is my company. That's GrieveLeave. We are on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, everywhere. And you can visit our website at grieveleave.com. And then you can find my personal Instagram too. If you like basketball and talking about sad things, you will love my personal Instagram.
Fantastic. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Cameron.
And for those of you listening, we'll have everything that was mentioned linked in the show notes at cameronatlas.com/podcast. We've got some great new guests coming up, so make sure you hit that follow button, leave a comment, and until next time, go and write the next line in your story. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon here on The Edge of Possible.